punching home your key messages is a vital part of any audio campaign. In this episode of Tripod, an essential guide to audio advertising from Trisonic, we explore key messages and ad burnout. I'm your host, Matt Hopper, and with me are Debbie Dillon, Creative Head at BBC Creative, and Creative Consultant Kieran Murphy.
So, in the briefing process, we talked about key messages in order of importance. How many key messages should you include in an ad?
I think, yes, to your point, Debbie, one is usually what I would advise.
Always.
Yeah. You've got such a limited amount of time to... it's a passive audience more often than not. You've got to first engage them. That's going to take up, a large portion of the beginning of your ad before you've even got to the great blow that you want to land. So more often than not, in the remainder of the ad, you've only got maybe 10 seconds to hit your point. So I would say one.
If the client says, look, I want to communicate more than one key message, does that mean more than one ad?
Yes, if the media plan allows, absolutely more than one ad. However, not at the expense of the opportunities to hear for that original ad. So there's no point diluting your message so that they will only hear the original ad half the number of times, if that makes any sense. You have to give every single message as much weight as you can. So you either have to buy more airtime or you supplement your campaign with other media and use the other platforms to convey the other messages.
It's also a great way to avoid that burnout as quickly. If you do have multiple messages going out in a different way, just gives the listener a little bit of a break. It's giving them a bit more of a reward for, didn't expect that new take on the ad. It's something more enjoyable to listen to as a listener rather than the same thing getting on your nerves all the time.
Although I would say, even if you've only got a finite amount of airtime and you want to have more than one execution, if you've got something that's really strongly branded as a series and it's the majority of the ad is the same, then you're already building that impact and that repetition. So if you just change a tiny bit of it, that actually gives you the opportunity to give a second message and rewards the listener because it's not quite the same as the first one.
Yeah, and actually in terms of production cost, you can do that all at the outset for very little money. So you don't have to go back into the studio later and do that. So when does burnout start? So we've already established that someone needs to hear an ad several times before they act on it, and then they'll hear it several times more. At what point does it become annoying?
It depends on the creativity, and humour actually burns out pretty quickly. So you've got to be careful with that, and it's all very subjective as well. So that's obviously got to be quite well targeted to your audience. I think music lasts longer unless it's a very annoying jingle. But then there's some of the most effective ads we've had. Burnout completely depends on what you're listening to.
I think you've got to be very in tune with the tone of your ad. That's not to say do something bland and middle of the road. Absolutely find a unique way to communicate with people, but rely on your creative teams. Give them interesting briefs. Ask them questions. Where do you think we can take this? What's the forward mileage of this creative idea that you've come to me? I'll hold my hands up and say it. I've given a client an ad that I think is great, and they've gone, what's the future plan with that though? Does it have legs? And I've gone, well, maybe you're right. Well, what about this one instead? It's a conversation that should be happening.
Can anyone write an audio ad? What makes an audio copywriter tick? And how do you go about writing an audio ad? Find out in the next episode, Do Words Really Matter? We'd love it if you could follow or subscribe to the show so you don't miss that and future episodes, and a rating and review would be great if you have time. For more details on all aspects of audio advertising, just visit trisonic.co.uk.